Hey everybody, this is Jordan McConnell with the Crohn's Veteran Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I am super honored and grateful to have my good friend Steven Lindquist from the Cosmopolitan here with me. How you doing, man?
Doing great. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. First off, I want to get into how you found me. So if you could tell the folks listening, how you found my show, and what you thought of it before we kind of get into some other things.
Yeah. So I actually found it via LinkedIn. I saw the interview that you did with you and Anthony, and listened and watched, wanted to hear it because I had seen your name at work, but I never got to meet you in person. I never got to meet you yet. So I got to meet Anthony a couple times. So listen to the podcast, and obviously it was a topic that kind of hit home with me. I have ulcerative colitis, so and then went on and listened to some of the other podcasts and found your website, and just have been kind of working my way through a bunch of the content, and
Awesome.
Been enjoying a lot of it.
I really appreciate that. Again, thank you for being here. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. This is Crohn's and Colitis Awareness Month. So it's really awesome that they agreed to be here. So so the folks listening will know what it's like, to have a chronic illness, but also kind of work a 9-to-5 corporate job too, and what life is like. So without further ado, Steven, if you could give the folks listening a little background about who you are, and I guess first of all maybe telling your ulcerative colitis story, and then we'll get into the business side of you a little bit later.
Absolutely. Yeah. So so I'm originally was kind of born and raised, like I was mentioning, born and raised in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and then moved around for work and all that stuff. But yeah, my UC story started not very long ago. Last February, so a year ago February.
Oh wow!
And it was always a real healthy, active guy. Never really, knock on wood, never really had any ailments, anything like that. And I always kind of had bad skin. And as a kid, I took a medication called Accutane, which is pretty harsh. It's like a vitamin A derivative, and it really helped with the acne as a kid. Fast forward, I guess what was I, 40-ish, and the skin was kind of bad again, like flaring up, and had like a lot of boils and stuff like that. So I went to the dermatologist, and they go, "Hey, why don't we try putting you on it again as an adult?" And I said, "Oh, okay. I guess I had some pretty good success with it before, and sign all the waivers and do all the stuff, and was on the medication for 5 days."
Wow.
And started not feeling really good, a lot of diarrhea, a lot of gas, a lot of, and I was like, well, I don't know if it's related or not, and I'll just kind of keep plugging away. And I think so you take the pill daily. I want to say I was probably 10 days into it, and I was like, wow, something doesn't feel quite right. So I call a dermatologist, and they go, well, sometimes you can have some gastrointestinal side effects. Why don't you go ahead and stop the medication? So I said, okay, that sounds good. So I stopped the medication, and after about another week or so, really didn't see any improvement.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, okay, we'll just kind of see how this is going to go. And it was in March. By this time, we're about the beginning of March, early March. And my wife wanted to go for a run. And we went for a run, and got back and went to got home, we had some dinner or whatever, and it was just a lot of kind of gas pain and stuff, and I'm like, man, what's going on? And that was the first time I went to the bathroom and I saw blood.
Oh no.
And it wasn't a lot, it was just it was a little bit, and I try not to overreact, and I'm like, all right, it's fine, it's probably okay. And my wife's like, no, you haven't been feeling very good, why don't you just go down to the doctor? Well, at this point we were living in Boise, Idaho, and a huge booming area. It's so hard to get into a doctor.
Gotcha.
So I went to the right by us was in an emergency or an emergency clinic, I guess, not like an emergency room, but I went in and said, hey, here's kind of what's going on. I took pictures and all that stuff so you could see it, and they were like, oh, you just have some inflammation. It's okay. We're gonna go ahead and
go home.
Send you home. Well, they sent me home. With nothing. They're like, gotta take some Tums or something. I'm like, oh, okay. So I went home, And then I told my wife, and she's like, "Oh, okay, we'll just watch it. We'll see how it goes." And I'm working at the time.
Yeah.
7 days later, so that was like on a Friday. The next Friday comes, and it hadn't gotten any better, and it was kind of getting worse. At that point, I want to say I was probably going to the bathroom 20 times a day now. And it's not very much, but it's blood every time, and it's like, okay, there is something really not going good here.
Right.
And so I went back to the same doctor, and they're like, okay, well, let's do some tests, and if you can, they thought I had C. diff, which is like a bacterial infection.
Yeah.
They're like, well, you might have C. diff and all this stuff, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, don't take Epsom salt baths, because if it's bacteria, it can spread to other parts of your body. And I'm like, whoa. Heart kind of stuff.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, okay. So I took the test kits home. That's quite a endeavor. I never dealt with anything like that before, but like even getting the samples. My wife is a godsend. She's an amazing woman. Helped me through all that stuff, and we got that all and got it sent off to him. And about 4 or 5 days later, they come back and go, oh, well, you don't have C. diff. So then it's these massive blood panel, blood tests, going 3 times a week, pulling and looking at all the numbers, and they're like, yeah, we're really not sure what's wrong. We're going to try and get you in for a colonoscopy. And that was 3 weeks out. And again, meanwhile...
So how are you feeling at this time?
So at this time, it's a lot of uncomfortable. It's pain. I started to lose a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
So I guess about when this started, I usually hover around like 160, like 150 to 160. So started to lose a couple pounds, and just nauseous.
Right.
Really not feeling that great. And just kind of a lot of gas pain, and fatigue kind of setting in. That was pretty much the most of it, but just really didn't overall feel very well.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, 3 weeks is like a long time. But hey, they know what's going on. I have no experience in this, so I'm just going to follow their lead.
Right. That was yep.
I'm not faulting them. I'm just saying I'm following their lead. So 3 weeks go by. And they're warning me about the prep for the colonoscopy, and I'm like, hey, at this point, please
do what you got to do.
I don't care what it takes, right? So go in and have the colonoscopy, and you're recovering out of it. And my wife's sitting there, and it was during COVID, but they let her come in. And they come in too, and they go, well, Miss Lindquist, the good news is he doesn't have cancer, and he doesn't have Crohn's. And I'm like, and I didn't know. I'm like, what else is there?
Right.
And I go, well, because of the inflammation, because of all the stuff, he goes into the bucket of ulcerative colitis. If they don't know what else it is and it's the inflammation, you go into the bucket of ulcerative colitis. And I go, okay.
Wow.
I go, okay. I didn't. Again,
we had no name for what you have, so you're going into the ulcerative colitis bucket.
That's where you go, I guess. Yeah. So they say we're going to send in a prescription. Here's the website, the Crohn's and Ulcerative Colitis of America website, and we'll follow up with you in 2 months and see how you're doing. I go, okay. So I'm thinking, well, this must not be very serious. Maybe I've never been one who's really been sick and go to the doctor, so I go, well, maybe I overreacted. I don't know. And so send me home. I get the prescription, and the first thing they put me on was mesalamine.
Okay, but what was that for? What was that for?
So essentially, it's called 5-acid. It's essentially to try to help lower the inflammation because essentially with ulcerative colitis, like your immune system is attacking.
Right.
It's because something's going on, and essentially what they think is that the Accutane kind of set that off, and really it was trying to get it out of my system because it was some kind of conflict in the body.
Interesting.
And that's one of the like 0.00000%, like when you sign the waivers,
right?
Like that can happen. Well,
it happened.
And but then the body doesn't stop trying to get it out. So they put me on mesalamine, and that was about the middle of March. And honestly, from there, it just got worse. So I had about every side effect that there was for mesalamine. I had headaches, really bad nausea. And, I mean, in all this time, continued, blood in the stool,
right?
Never gone away. And at this point, it's continuing to happen. The inflammation doesn't go away, and it's about, we're probably about 30 times a day body's trying to go to the bathroom all times throughout the night. Had to really use a lot of meditation to just kind of get through the pain.
Right, just to try to maintain.
Yeah, just to be able to sleep.
Right.
I was so lucky, again, knock on wood, thank God. I was able to sleep through the night most of the time, 6-7 hours. So, I think through the meditation, through everything, was able to kind of just pure exhaustion, just able to sleep. So I was on mesalamine for a while, and again, I was just kind of going down. I was going downhill. Pretty, my wife was concerned, and it's hard because she's taking care of me, the house. She's working a full-time job,
right.
Our 2 dogs, and she's taking care of literally everything because I can't. I wake up, eat. I was able to work from home.
And then this is what people don't know is just how IBD can really just doesn't just impact the person with it. It heavily impacts the family members and
yes.
Loved ones around that person too.
Yeah, and I watched a podcast about that, and it's so true, and it hit home. Without my wife, I don't know what I would have done. And our family wasn't close to us really at that time, so she's trying to keep them informed, do all the stuff, work a full-time job, and said she's a godsend to be able to do all that, and just really take care of me and be a proponent for me. So so I was really not doing very well. I was able to get up, eat breakfast, and then work somewhat of a regular day. Worked remote for a lot of the being really sick, and it's they just don't tell you a lot. They're like, hey, here's this website, you can read about it, and
I know,
and you can read and get down a rabbit hole where it gets real dark.
And that's a little bit why I created the show. That's why I created the brand. That's why I created all this stuff for, is because when I was when I finally kind of got out of this depressed hole or whatever, to try to talk, to try to I wanted to engage with the community, or wanted to find out what everybody's doing and stuff. Like I look, and it's just like almost like people bragging about how sick they are, and that's not, and everybody has a different journey with their own struggles and stuff, and how they express that, and not knocking anybody for how they share their stories and stuff, but that didn't work for my mental health. Right. Yep. And so I set out to try to create something that allows people to share their stories in a more positive way. I wanted to create a brand, a logo, and all that kind of stuff that that people can kind of wear with pride, and it's not something that you have to be ashamed of. Yeah. And so what I'm curious about is so how is kind of tying together your career as a for folks that don't know, Steven is a cloud data architect, which is which sounds pretty cool, and so I think so. And so can you explain what that is for folks that don't know that, how you got into that?
Yes.
And and how ulcerative colitis impacts your career?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so so we'll circle back around, and so I actually started college as a finance major to be a stockbroker.
Okay. Ooh,
and
okay.
I didn't really want to get up at 4 o'clock every morning because I always lived on the West Coast. And I thought, man, that's not really going to work. But I always had an interest in computers. We had a computer at home, and I was always interested in like taking things apart and figuring out how they worked. So after my first semester at community college, I decided to actually go to ITT Tech, which is now defunct. It doesn't exist anymore.
It's a throwback, right?
It's a throwback. And they had just opened up. They were mainly doing like electronic stuff, but they just started CNET, Computer Network Systems Technologies program.
Okay.
And it was, computer networking, programming, a whole bunch of stuff. So I went and I did that, and it was a 2-year program. And you kind of get a little bit of the gamut. You learn A+, you learn all the hardware. You do some programming with C++ and Visual Basic VB6, and then a little bit of database, a little bit, and then a bunch of Linux networking and Windows networking. So I did that, and at the time I was working at a car dealership, washing cars and like driving the service van.
Okay, awesome.
In the middle of winter in Idaho, it was pretty.
That's character building.
Oh, it was a tough go, and they're like, "Hey, you're going to school for computers?" I go, "Yeah," and they go, "We have this. We're trying to put our inventory and do stuff on the website. Would you want to come do the website?" And I really didn't know much web stuff. I was like, "Sure, why not?" So, learned Hot Metal Pro as an HTML editor, and I just started doing the website. And I did that for about a year or so, and I was like, there's got to be more to IT than all this stuff. I learned all this about that time. I graduated college. I finished ITT Tech, and I went on to work at a manufacturing company as a service desk. Started out at help desk, and worked my way up. I was there for about 5 years, during which time they implemented we had an old VAX, like a deck VAX system.
Okay.
That I helped administrate, and we put
what is that?
So it was a manufacturing company. It was an ERP system that managed like all of the inventory, the orders, and it tried to give you a plan of like when to get things there to build it in time.
Okay.
And it was on this monster. I mean, it was like the size of a refrigerator. Linux-based system,
wow.
I believe, and it's all command line, green screen.
Wow.
And they go, we want to implement a Windows-based ERP system, and it's going to have a SQL database. And there was only 3 of us in IT, and they're like, well, who's going to learn that? And I was like, oh, I will, because service does fix and broke computers, and at that time, internet was kind of there, but it was. Hey, we got these floppy disks of drivers,
right.
And we're building computers and servers by hand. And I was like, man, there's got to be more to IT than this, I think.
There is.
So I go, I would love to try to learn databases, because I was not a front end guy. I'm not a creative person. So someone says, hey, I want to build this front end and do all that. It would probably have like square buttons and boxes. Start button, just submit it. Right. It would not look very good. But I liked the data, and I liked the things behind the scenes. So that's how I learned. I started SQL in 2002.
Okay.
2003. So just about 20 years now working with SQL and databases. And from there I just I decided I should probably, that company had a policy if you wanted to progress, you should get a bachelor's degree. So I said, okay. And so I went back to school, worked full time, went back to school, got the bachelor's.
Cool.
And a guy I went to school with was like, hey, we have this opening for a DBA. Because I was at the company, I was still doing service. You never lose the job that you grow out of.
Right.
And it sounded like a great opportunity, and I was like, yeah, sounds great. So I went over and was a DBA for a few years, and at that point got introduced to data warehousing. I worked in a lab and supported that, and we had a data warehouse there, and I didn't have any idea what a data warehouse really was until I got into that role. And so a data warehouse is essentially you can take a collection of source systems from within the business, pull it into a singular database, into a warehouse where you can do data and analytics on it.
Cool.
we transform the data and make it more analytical friendly, stuff like that. So then I worked there for 2 years, and then I actually got recruited to come down to Vegas.
Sweet.
And that started the journey, and then I became a data engineer when I came down here and worked for IGT, game manufacturer. And we had an analytics product that we built and that we sold, and worked there for a handful of years, and then then kind of got in, was an engineer for probably 6 or 7 years. And then I got an opportunity to become a data architect, an enterprise data architect at another casino company. And so I've been doing data architecture since about the last 12 years.
Cool.
And it's been great, and I love it. I love data. I knew that kind of data found me, and then once I found it, I loved it. You know, it sounds cliche and it sounds kind of dumb, but I mean, I love every day going to work and working with data.
Yeah.
It fuels that passion to keep learning, and sadly, happily enough, a lot of that too also kind of kept me going through the colitis stuff. Was, hey, I was still able to do what I loved every day, and I kind of made that the focus, sometimes too much, where you don't focus on yourself enough, right?
You got to take care of yourself before you can do anything else.
Yeah, you have to.
I mean, it's interesting. You know, you're talking about how, you know, IT careers and stuff, and mine was just kind of born out of troubleshooting and problem solving. That's why I'm the solutions. I'm the solutions guy, and you're the data guy and stuff. But that it's just it's amazing. That's what I love to do. I love to problem solve. I love to try to just fix. I love I love just fixing problems, solving problems, and my career has taken me to going from replacing mice and computers and email and internet and all all that kind of stuff, and to just kind of and then actually in the Air Force I did a lot of cool stuff in the Air Force, but then and then getting out, I worked at Cox, doing tech support for them, and just worked my way all the way up into I worked at a children's hospital before I moved to Las Vegas and stuff like that.
Okay.
I was a systems engineer for them, and then I think before that I was a desktop analyst for several years at a construction company and stuff. And so, but this is it. But I love it too, man. And so it's I love the intellectual challenge of it all.
It is very challenging.
And so it keeps you sharp. Keeps your knives sharp. And so how's your health today?
So health today is good. So through that whole mesalamine, and I got to a kind of rock bottom. But I had this chance meeting. My wife and I were working at a small software services company. She was in HR, I was in IT, doing data. I was managing developers, and we hired new people. They came from out of state. We took them to dinner, and at that point, I was the sickest. I was 120 pounds. I lost 40 pounds.
Wow.
Face all concave, had no body weight, couldn't sleep at night. I was contemplating going to the ER because I was so dehydrated, and just nothing was working. And I was like, is this it? Is this it? Is this the end? I didn't know what was going on. And again, I was 2 months until they can see me. I was 2 weeks out from even getting to see them. And I had this chance dinner with this guy that we met, who we had just hired, great guy. And we sat down to dinner. I said, I'm really sorry. I'm just recently diagnosed with UC, because I'm pretty upfront to tell people that, because I'm like, if I have to bolt in the middle of this conversation, please don't take offense to it, but I'm just trying to figure it out. So I bolt to the bathroom, and he has this conversation with my wife, and it's like, hey, is it okay if I talk to him? And I sit down, and he goes, hey, can I tell you something? I'm like, yeah. And he's 26, so he's a lot younger than I am. He's like, I had the exact same thing. I got diagnosed with UC 2 years ago. I go, oh, really? And so instantly I see him, and it kind of gave me a little bit of hope. I'm like, so you look okay,
right?
And he goes, my brother had something similar, and that medicine it's poisoning you. He's like, it doesn't work for everybody. I go, I know, but I got 2 more weeks. And he's like, no, you need to call your doctor Monday. He's like, if you could call him today, call him today. He's like, you need to be an advocate for yourself. This is not right. And to snap me into whoa. okay, because I didn't know. I was like,
Right.
I had no idea.
I mean, you're just doing what your doctor recommended, and you know.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, well, okay, and they kept telling me the medicine will kick in slowly. Well, 6 weeks it didn't, and I was in really bad shape.
Yeah.
And so I called him Monday on his advice, he kind of like lectured me. We spent the afternoon with him, and he's like, you're not in good health. He's like, you're in bad shape. And I'm like, yeah. I go, my wife's been kind of telling me that, but he's like, no, really. He's like, I've been there. You got to believe me. You're not in good shape. And I'm like, okay. So I called them Monday, and they got me in Tuesday. And when the doctor saw me, the look on her face was all I kind of needed to know.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I waited too long. And she goes, oh, she's like, okay, this is serious. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, so then I'm afraid. I'm like, oh no. She's like, okay, we're going to switch medication. She's like, but the first thing we're going to do is, she's like, I'm going to get you on prednisone because we have got to get the inflammation down.
Right.
And I said, oh, okay. So I told her all the story, told her all the stuff. And being a data guy, I log all my food. I logged my weight the whole time and water intake. And it's like I was able to give it to her. And she's like, yeah, this isn't good. So they put me on prednisone right away. And, it's a blessing and a curse, because I call it a miracle drug, but I know it's got tons of side effects. But 3 days later, even though I was still extremely dehydrated, extremely, low weight, I mean, I felt like $1 million. I'm like, I can't believe that. I mean, I felt so much better. It was unbelievable. But it was just because there was so much inflammation in my body that there's nothing that it couldn't. They were telling me it was not able to absorb water and any of the nutrients, and it's maybe TMI, but when you're eating food and it passes through undigested, is when they're like, that's when you have some problems, because that was happening to me.
Right.
I could eat food, and especially greens and roughage, and it doesn't digest.
I mean, and I've similar problems. Like if I don't take my medicine, life is pretty terrible if I don't take my medicine, type thing.
Yeah. So started prednisone, and they go, well, we're going to try it since I had insurance. Luckily, I had good health insurance. They go, we're going to try and get you on Humira, which is an injectable that you take. And so I was on prednisone for a little while as they tried to ramp on the Humira, which didn't work right away. So I was doing it, first was once a month, and then that didn't work, and I was still on prednisone, and they would try to ramp me down on prednisone, and the symptoms would pick back up again.
Wow.
And so it's kind of that yo-yo. And then I started taking Humira every other week, and was still on the prednisone. And by about that point, the blood in the stool had gone away. I wasn't gaining any weight back. But, I was gaining some of the water weight back, probably back up to about 130 or so. And then every time they would try to take me off prednisone, it took a couple of days, and it would start to get pretty bad again. So then I did Humira every week. And so all of this took through the summer until about August. So it's about 6-7 months of pretty not great.
Right.
I know a lot of people have it much worse, but it's pretty it's very eye opening, right?
It is.
So Humira once a week, and then I was able to get off the prednisone, because you can't stay on it for long term, because then there's a whole bunch of other side effects.
Right.
Very, very bad. So so by that point I was on Humira, and I've been on Humira once a week since last August. So what's that, about 9 months? So by the fall, and after the doctor seeing me, I was able to have more follow-ups more often, because they wanted to keep track of me. Lots of blood work still. And so then moved back to Vegas, got set up here, and so I'm technically in what they call clinical remission.
Awesome.
Which is really good. And what the doctors tell me is you're about like 85% back. So I still have symptoms. Right. I still have, I have to still watch what I eat. I have a very regular schedule, for eating, bathroom, eating. I can kind of time when it's going to be, so I still, so everyday life is still, when I go to a place, I still scope out where the bathroom is. It's one of those things,
instinctual,
you know where it is. I carry stuff with me. I carry a change of clothes. I carry things with me because
life happens when you make plans, type thing.
Life happens, and I've been in meetings, and you ate something that didn't agree with you, or I believe on one of your podcasts you mentioned with one of the hosts was when you get stressed, or when there's a stressful situation, whether it be work, personal, whatever. It goes straight to your straight to your stomach and your intestines.
Definitely. So, your mental health has to be, constantly looked after to make sure, to make sure all your efforts of eating and drinking and all that stuff actually work.
Yep. So, so I'm not a very good flyer. I take medication to fly, but I travel a lot. And, a flight coming up, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, here comes that pain, and a lot of the gas pain and a lot of that stuff, it'll never go away. I guess it'll always be there, and that's okay. I'm in a good spot. They're gonna try another medication with me because they'd like it to be more to that like 90-95%, because even that low level inflammation over time can higher risk of colon cancer and that type of stuff. So just trying to really stay on top of it and be an advocate for it. And really the thing that they didn't tell me about, and I had to kind of learn was, and that's why I love this platform is at times you kind of have to be a little bit selfish and be an advocate for yourself.
You do.
And hey, look, I'm not okay.
You gotta fill your own cup.
Yeah.
You gotta fill your, if you want to be, loving, loving and being productive and loving towards other people and also that kind of stuff, you gotta fill your own cup. You gotta take care of yourself, and it's really easy to, put yourself last.
Yeah.
So it's okay to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, and it's so to come around, so working in a day job, working every day, it's it's something I'm definitely aware of in the back of my mind is we go in the office sometimes. Luckily you're able to work from home where you have that kind of insurance that everything you need is at your disposal.
Right.
If you need to use the bathroom, it's right there.
Right. You don't have to go to the cafeteria or whatever. It just like figure out what food you're going to eat today.
Yes.
And you have the food that should be the key word, settle right on your stomach type thing.
Yeah. So so lunches with vendors and clients are interesting sometimes because I don't get to choose where we go eat. But it's always look on the menu for. I'm not a big spicy food or anything like that, so I'm looking for the most bland. Like the UC doctor told me is like the things that are probably going to be the best for you are probably like not the most healthy, like bakery goods and cookies and things that are low fiber that are easily tolerable.
Right.
But there's there's side effects of that too.
Exactly.
You gotta get the right nutrients and take lots of vitamins and supplements to make sure that I try to keep up on that. But I think the eating I still have to dial in.
Me too. It's a journey. Right?
It is. So I eat pretty. I eat like a teenager. I say I eat a lot of stuff that's not that great and healthy, but it's easily digestible. It doesn't I like green beans and I like the green vegetables and stuff, but if you don't cook them enough, that can be a problem,
right?
And it's painful.
I know, and you also have to let yourself off the hook that sometimes you can't control how you feel, and
True.
so that I struggle with that. Like saying what did I eat that caused this?
Yes.
And sometimes you didn't do anything.
Yes. Sometimes it's not your fault.
So that's okay too, but
it is.
Steven, we got to wrap things up a little bit here.
Yep.
If there's any parting words of wisdom, for the folks, for the folks out there listening,
I really, the thing that was hardest for me to learn, like it is said, is really to be an advocate for yourself. You kind of got to watch out for you and your family around you will help, and just try to, like you say very very often, is just try and stay positive and look at the positive side of it, and having a good support system will really help, and just try to stay in that positive frame of mind and get help when you need it, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right.
And I'm be upfront and honest. Even people I just meet, I know sometimes it's a little embarrassing, but hey, if I have to leave in the middle of this, please don't take offense.
I think it's awesome that you do that. Certain people, even myself, have been embarrassed to to say this is what it is, and this is what it is.
Yeah.
Type thing, and
just try and do that, and I think you can't go wrong with honesty.
Right. No, you can't.
People understand you're going through something.
Right.
And go, okay, yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so, and that, so I mean, this. So with the show, that's kind of why I do that a little bit.
Yeah.
It helps because this people see this wherever they see it at.
Yep.
So it kind of helps to kind of like not hide. It's kind of that growing through doing uncomfortable things.
Yes. And there's no blueprint for it all.
No.
A lot of doctors try and help, but everybody's different too. Mm-hmm. So having this platform and this podcast to hear all the different stories, I think, has really helped, and it's been very informative even to me. So
thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
That means the world. That's exactly why I do this. And so again, Steven Lindquist, the man, the cloud data architect. Thank you so much for being here. If you're inspired by this story, if this show brought value to you, please like it, please share it, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. This is a labor of love, and I do this just to raise awareness for IBD conditions for folks all over the world. And so if you would like to share your story with me, I'd be honored and grateful. You can reach me at jordan@crohnsveteran.com. You can check out the website, crohnsveteran.com. There's really cool merch on there for not only Crohn's disease, but also ulcerative colitis gear on there too. So please check it out. And again, thanks, Steven, for being here.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Peace out, guys.